Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Clemson Sports Show. This is your co-host, Joseph Hastings, joined as always by Matt Connolly. And today we were able to speak with multiple players, offensive coordinator Tony Elliott and defensive coordinator Brent Venables, as is the usual on Mondays following game days. So we're able to hear a lot, get a lot of great interviews, especially, and we're going to talk about this one player here to start off the show, Matt Bockhorst. Offensive lineman for Clemson, veteran offensive lineman. He had some colorful quotes to share with us, talking about how, he's an offensive lineman and he eats criticism for breakfast, and talking about DJU, his quarterback, and how there's no one who works harder than him. Just a very passionate presser that he had with the media. Matt, you were there for it the whole time. Tell me what you thought about it and, what Matt had to say.
Yeah, I thought it was, first of all, just really, really good. He was very open, very honest kind of about where he feels like the offensive line is. He said, he's playing, he feels like pretty well, but there's a lot he can improve. He feels like the offensive line as a whole is doing some good things, but just, it only takes one person to mess up or one person to miss a block or miss an assignment or whatever it might be, and the whole play's ruined, and now everyone's just kind of blaming the whole unit. So, I think that it's still a work in progress is kind of the word he used that really has been the word around the facility lately is just, they feel like they're making progress, not too far away, feel like they can break out at some point, but it just hasn't really happened yet, especially not against an FBS team when you look at the Georgia and Georgia Tech games. So, I think one of the more interesting things that he said is he's there to win football games and not make friends. And so, he was a guy who was fired up on the sideline Saturday, trying to get other guys motivated. I know he was kind of talking with some other linemen at times, Lynn J. Dixon at times, just trying to get everyone going, get everyone fired up. And, that's what you want from a leader. That's what you want from your senior. He didn't seem really worried about the chemistry or anything like that. He just feels like, it's not good to have a lot of people maybe doing that on the sideline, yelling and kind of in that kind of role, taking on that role, but he just feels like as a leader, it's his job to try to get guys motivated, and that's what he was doing. So certainly interesting words from Matt Bockhorst today.
Now, Matt, a common thing that we've been hearing from these press conferences over the past couple of weeks is that things are looking good in practice. They're executing well in practice, but when it comes to game days, it's just not working out the way that they've been practicing. It's not translating well on game days. So to me, just based off what we've been hearing in the press conferences and based off what they've been telling us about practice, it seems like Clemson's winning 6 days a week, but they're not really winning on that seventh day when it matters on game days. What do you feel like needs to be addressed here in terms of making sure that execution that they're having in practice goes over to game days and they're able to live up to the potential, especially on offense?
Yeah, for sure. And that seventh day is the one that really matters. I mean, no one cares, how well practice is going. It's good, I guess, that you're practicing well, but what really matters is if it carries over to the game, and that just hadn't been happening. And I think, part of that is having young guys, whether it be Marcus Tate starting at left guard, Walker Parks at right tackle, another young guy, just really, really young on the offensive line. Even Matt Bockhorst, who's a senior, but he's playing center for the first time now. So it was a new position for him, kind of different for him. So I think that's part of it. You've got mental mistakes with guys jumping off sides. They've had holding calls, just kind of really anything you can imagine that's gone wrong so far this year. And so, I think understandably, when that's going wrong, there's going to be plenty of blame to go around, and there's going to be plenty of people upset. I think it's just focusing on the little details, that they were saying that on the shovel pass, the guard that was pulling got too far outside and didn't pinch inside and allow Will Shipley to pick up that first down. That was a huge play in the game. Uiagalelei holding the ball in his right hand, trying to pick up yardage in short yardage situations, even though it was third down. And if you saw on the replay, he's stretching the ball trying to pick up the first down, which, first of all, he already has the yards. But second of all, Tony Elliott was saying today, they teach them don't stretch on third down. If you're going to stretch, make sure it's fourth down. Because the worst case scenario, if you don't stretch on third down, is you still have the ball and you've got another down to either pick it up or get a field goal. But if you're stretching, it's very easy to have the ball knocked out, and that's exactly what happened. So just a lot, I think, going on wrong right now at the moment. I mean, DJ hasn't been overly accurate. I think he's made pretty good decisions for the most part, but accuracy just hasn't been there. throwing off his back foot too much, not stepping into his throw. So just a lot of blame to go around for the offense. And, talking with them, that in some ways they're kind of saying this is who we are. You can't go at this point. You can't go to the transfer portal and try to bring in new guys or new starters or anything like that. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some other offensive linemen get in the game this week. I think that's something that needs to happen. We heard all offseason about the depth, but at the same time, I think it's just a slow process. And Jordan McFadden said as much today. This isn't going to be an overnight fix. It's something that's going to have to be gradual and take time. And so not a lot of time right now when you're getting ready to play at NC State on the road here in 6 days or so. But, 5, I guess it's less than that now. So,
yep.
Not a whole lot of time to get it fixed in practice, but really they need to make sure that what's happening in practice carries over to the games.
And you talked about DJU. I'm going to get to him in a quick second, but I want to read one quote here from Bockhorst because I think it's pretty important. He said, "There's a standard that's been set by the guys before us, and we owe something to that standard. I'm not going to relent on that, and I'm not going to let these guys down because I know what they gave. The guys that came before us, I know what they have sacrificed. I know what that looks like." Do you feel like, and this was touched on last week as well when talking about DJU trying to live up to the expectations of Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson, the quarterbacks before him. Do you feel like the bar was set so high, for Clemson in previous years that it could be affecting them a little bit this season as well, just trying to live up to those expectations?
Yeah, I think there's some of that for sure. I mean, I think that is hard, when you're used to having the number one offense in the country or one of the best offenses in the country every year. It's hard to sustain that when you're having so many new pieces. I mean, it's not just, a new quarterback and Trevor Lawrence. You're talking about Travis Etienne, the ACC's all-time leading rusher, being gone. A couple of your best receivers, the top 2 receivers from last year, and Amari Rodgers and Cornell Powell are gone. So you have a lot of new pieces you're trying to incorporate. New starting left tackle, new center. So, I mean, there's just a lot of change, and I think that it was unfair in some ways to expect DJ to just come in and immediately pick up where Trevor left off last year. To be fair on the other side, we've heard a lot about this offense, from the coaching staff all summer. This offense is going to be better. The offensive line is going to be better. The receivers are deeper. There's a lot more there. DJ's got a stronger arm than Trevor. There were a lot of things that we heard this offseason that just haven't really been true so far this year. And so, it's still a long season, a lot that can be corrected, a lot of time still until you're really talking about coming down the stretch. But Clemson doesn't have any margin for error after the loss to Georgia, so not a lot of time to get things figured out. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the expectations were maybe a little unfair, but I do think in some ways the coaching staff kind of set the bar with the way we talked all off season.
Absolutely. And I'm going to switch over to DJ here because he did speak with the media. The one quote that stood out to me was when he said Rome wasn't built in a day. He emphasized during his time with us saying, we can't dwell on the past. We have to keep moving forward, keep looking ahead to us, focused on NC State, obviously not dwell on the past, but he said that they want to focus on what they did wrong, how they can improve it. Matt, do you think that that's the right mentality to have, or should they try and change up their approach just a little bit? You should be dwelling on the past. These past 3 games, specifically against the FBS teams, Georgia and Georgia Tech, haven't been that great. And there's a lot of room for improvement here. Do you think that's the right mentality to have, or should they change it up a little?
Yeah, I think it's hard for the staff in some ways because you have such a young offense, and so on one hand you want to say, hey, look at all this that's wrong. We've got to fix this, and this. You can't keep doing this. You want to be pretty harsh on them. But at the same time, you don't want to be harsh to the point where they're losing confidence. And so I think it's really hard to try to kind of play in the middle and handle that correctly. It's not easy to try to tear down in one instance and be upset with someone, but also try to build confidence back. So, I think you have to emphasize the good that you're doing, point that out, say, look, this is what it looks like when we do it right. They're having success in offense moving the ball against the defense in practice. And Clemson has shown, I think, throughout the season that it has one of the better defenses in the country. So I think that you can build some confidence there. But also you've got to be harsh and let them know what needs to be corrected. So I'm sure that they're going back to work this week, really honing in on the details and making sure that those get corrected. But yeah, it's hard. I mean, some of these issues that are showing up this year, things that we've pointed out now for going on 2 years. I mean, there were big issues on the offensive line last year as well. We were under the impression a lot of that would be fixed just based off of kind of what we heard in the preseason, and so far this hasn't been the case.
Yeah, and we talked about the expectations that this offense has, and I think part of it, even though it's a little bit unfair to expect DJ to live up to, Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, those guys before him, but he did go on the road against Notre Dame last year, filling in for Trevor Lawrence and threw for over 400 yards. I think that could be a little bit attributed to, the expectations that this offense has, knowing what he did last year as a true freshman and then having a full offseason as the, bona fide starter. He's going to be coming in and getting all the starting reps in spring and fall camp. When looking at DJ, though, on Saturday against Georgia Tech, it felt like he got a lot more confidence running the ball. He rushed for 43 yards on 7 attempts in the second half. That seemed to kind of give him a little bit of some moxie, some momentum there going. Didn't necessarily translate to the passing game, but do you want your starting quarterback, especially someone with so much talent as DJ has, to be taking those hits and running the ball that frequently, or should the priority still be on passing?
Yeah, I think you just have to pick your spots. I mean, it was interesting. I don't think that he ran it much at all the first 2.5 quarters, and then ran it one drive 6 times, and then didn't really run it anymore after that either. So it was just weird. Like they finally went to it. It worked some. DJ fumbled, and that was the end of it. And it took them 2.5 quarters to really go to it. So I think it's one of those situations where you don't want your star quarterback, taking more hits than he has to. And certainly, I think they went into the game thinking that they could beat Georgia Tech without having to run their quarterback a whole lot. And then you get into the game and there's not a whole lot else working. And so you just have to go with what you feel good about. I think you just have to pick your spots. I mean, 3rd and short, I think that he's definitely a guy that can go in there and pick up 2, 3 yards if you need him to, in those kind of short yardage situations. Maybe, if you're kind of struggling on first down, give him an opportunity on 1st and 10 and see if he can pick up 4, 5, 6 yards and put you in a manageable situation. But definitely you don't want a guy, running 20 times, getting hit, getting banged up a lot. So I think it's just a kind of a tricky situation to try to figure out exactly when to run them. But I didn't love that, they ran them a ton on one drive, and that was pretty much it for the game. I think you just got to mix it up some, pick your spots, and get them the carries when you can, but not overdo it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point. And the last thing about DJ before we move on to what Tony Elliott had to say, we've been hearing from Elliott, from DJ over the past couple of days following the Georgia Tech game, that the way that Georgia Tech played, it forced them to focus primarily on running the ball, throwing the ball short to medium, don't take any chances downfield. Would you have liked to have seen Clemson and, whether it's against Georgia Tech or now upcoming against NC State, would you have liked to have seen them take some more shots down the field and say, you know what, we got, what we believe is who we believe is one of the top quarterbacks in the country, and Joe Ngata and, Frank Ladson, Justin Ross, we're just going to throw it downfield. And if there's an interception, so what, our defense is elite enough to buy us another possession. Would you have liked to have seen them take more shots?
Yeah, I just think Clemson's receiving core is so good that you just have to give those guys some opportunities downfield. Even if it's throwing into double cover some if you have to. I mean, they can't double cover everyone. But I think and they mentioned, they're playing the cloud coverage over the top with 3 safeties back deep, and that's really hard to throw deep to. But I think that there are ways, whether it be play action and get a guy going over the middle, trying to get a safety to bite up and, try to take off on a route over the middle, and then you can maybe hit something deep intermediate route and hit something deep. I mean, I think that you had to have a way to try to get Justin Ross the ball down the field. He's a guy that we've seen make circus catches throughout his career. I asked Tony again today if there's any thought of moving him back outside, and doesn't sound like right now they feel like they've seen enough sample size. It did sound today, it was the most I've heard them kind of be open to the fact that maybe, move him back outside and see what he can do, because he was such a threat on the outside, when he was there his first couple of years here. But yeah, I mean, it's, I think you have to find a way to try to take some of those shots. You just have such good receivers. I mean, Dabo was talking before the year about they're going to take a picture of these receivers because you're going to look back and they're all going to be in the NFL one day. But Ross had 6 catches, I believe, 6 or 7 catches Saturday. I think the rest of the receivers combined for 3. E.J. Williams didn't have any. I think Joseph Ngata and Frank Ladson combined for 3, and that was it. So, I mean, you've got some depth there. You've got some talent. Find a way to get those guys the ball. But I do get that it's hard when you can't run the ball. I think it all starts with running the ball, and if they're dropping 8 into coverage, you've got to be able to run and pick up 7, 8, 9, 10 yards and try to get them out of that defense. And Clemson just couldn't do that consistently. There were way too many 2-yard run, 3-yard, 4-yard, whatever it may be, to where Georgia Tech just felt like, hey, we're perfectly fine. If y'all want to pick up 3 yards a pop, that's fine, and we'll try to stop you in the red zone. And they were able to do that a lot. So it's hard for sure with the defense they were playing, but I do think you have to find a way to get those guys the ball deep.
Yeah, they always say scared money don't make money. And, at some point with how well the defense is playing, they held them for 3 points for most of the game. They held Georgia Tech to 3 points for most of the game. You just got to say, I'm going to take a deep shot in it, and I'm going to throw a 50-50 ball to Justin Ross and just hope that he gets it. If it's interception, so what? Our defense is good enough to, like I said before, get us another possession. So you definitely want to –
I'll just make one other point. I mean, Tony Elliott was saying today, well, if you take a deep shot and it's incomplete, now it's 2nd and 10, which is true. But if you take a deep shot and you're able to hit on a big play, now maybe you've got a touchdown and you've broken the game open, and they're having to change the way they're playing defense and having to get more aggressive and try different things. And then you're able to keep being aggressive offensively. So, I think you have to look at – you can't only look at the what happens if this goes wrong. You also have to look at the what happens if this goes right. And I do think when you're throwing to Justin Ross, there's plenty of opportunity for it to go right.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the mentality that I believe they should approach with. It doesn't mean that you take, you throw the ball down the field 20 times a game and, you just – you play too risky like that. I think you can at least take 3 or 4. We just haven't seen that consistently from this team. And they're settling for the run when the defense is daring them to. You can't let the opponent determine what you're going to do. You're going to say, you know what, our talent is better than yours. We're going to take the chances when we need to. So going over to Tony Elliott, he did say that DJ played his best game out of the whole season. He said this was his best game of the 3. DJ, of course, has yet to hit 200 passing yards in each of those 3 games, but he felt like there was only 3 throws that DJ wished he had back. Do you feel like this was DJ's best game? Real quickly, do you feel like this was his best one? I think South Carolina State was probably the best one, but
it might have been the best game, but the bar was pretty low. I mean, against Georgia, there just nothing really worked offensively the entire game, and against SC State, I think he was 14 of 24 with like a touchdown and an interception, and wasn't great in that game either. So this may have been his best one. You mentioned the 3 throws he missed. Probably the fact that he got involved in the running game a little more, even though he did have the fumble, but he did make some plays with his legs, pick up a 3rd and long. So, I mean, I think probably into considering the competition, it is an ACC opponent. I think it was probably fair to say that it was his best game, but certainly wasn't, elite level, anything like the Notre Dame game or anything like that. I mean, it was at best, it was a 3rd best game of his career. And, the first 2 were both last year. So, yeah, I mean, I think he played better, but there's still tons of room for improvement for sure.
Absolutely. And Elliott was also talking about how he felt like the offense moved well down the field. So he kind of counteracted what some of the criticisms that were levied against him and how his offense performed. He said that he felt like they moved it down the field, but there was 2 costly, turnovers, sequences of event that ended up changing the narrative a little bit. But I'm looking at Georgia Tech, and you brought this up before, Matt. It's a really good point. Georgia Tech lost their season opener against Northern Illinois. That same Northern Illinois team lost 63-10 against Michigan. So, I'm a math person. That's my second. That's my second specialty. By the transitive property, you would think that Clemson should beat Georgia Tech fairly handily, not by 6 points, just based on how the talent on their roster versus what we saw Georgia Tech earlier this season. What did you make of Elliott saying that he actually felt like they moved the ball down the field pretty well? Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with it?
Yeah, I mean, I get what he was saying. Like, they had some drives that were going nicely. I mean, they did pick up some decent runs, particularly with Will Shipley in at running back. They were able to put some drives together. I think they had 2 12-play drives that ended without points, though, and so you can't have that with the turnover on downs on the shoulder pass we mentioned, and then DJ fumbling. I get what he's saying. If you score those two and get touchdowns, now it's 28-6, and it's a whole new game, and you're winning by 22 points, and things look a lot differently. But that didn't happen, and I think the margin for error right now for the Clemson offense is just really small. They can't really overcome a turnover or anything like that, and still put a game together easily. So, I think I did get what he was saying. I mean, they were sustaining some drives, but it's not the way we're used to it looking. It wasn't the explosive plays that we're used to seeing. And then they just didn't finish drives with touchdowns, which we're used to as well. So, I can see in some ways what he's saying, but also, I think that you got to finish the drives, and they just didn't do that.
Now, was there anything else from our time with Elliott today that you took away? Obviously Elliott is, he's a funny guy. He joked around today, said that everyone's favorite person is the backup quarterback, or sometimes the backup offensive coordinator. Just joked around there. But was there anything that you took away from our conversation with him?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is just talking about needing to go under center and have that ability. I think that's something that they're going to do in the future when they need to pick up a yard. They're not going to be afraid to go under center and do a quarterback sneak. I tweeted that immediately after the fumble. Is like, do you not have a quarterback sneak play where you just go under center? I mean, you have a 250-pound quarterback, take the ball, literally just fall down, and the game's over. But they went into shotgun. Now you're snapping the ball into your own end zone, and Georgia Tech's obviously punching to try to get the ball out because that's their only way to win, or try to get a safety, and then they get it. So yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly something too. As he said, we got to be able to have the ability to go under center and pick up a yard, or even no gain and just fall forward if we need to end the game. And I think if they get in a similar situation, we'll see that happen in the future.
Yeah, I actually thought in that sequence of events, I know you risk jeopardizing holding in the end zone, which could be a safety as well. But just roll DJ out to the back corner, throw it out 4 times in a row. That's what I personally would have done, but I'm not getting paid millions of dollars to do this. So I don't necessarily know. And obviously they know their personnel better than I do. But
I mean, you probably could have even done it 2 or 3 times just with the clock. I mean, I think the clock was 15 seconds or whatever it was. You didn't need a lot of time. Just roll them out, try to buy a few seconds. And yeah, I'm with you. And even if you take a safety, it's not the end of the world. They've got to go 75 yards in 10 seconds against maybe the best defense in the country. So yeah, I'm with you. Just didn't think there was any need to put any real risk into it. And that's kind of what happens when you take a snap into the end zone and then hand it off. So, and too, I mean, Clemson's had some troubles with snaps. I mean, they had 2 snap miscues against Georgia, had another one against Georgia Tech. It's been an issue this year. So, yeah, I think we'll see a different game plan in the future in those situations.
I think so too. And although most of this show was a little bit focused on the negative issues, especially when it comes to the offense, I guess the silver lining is that they're getting these problems out of the way. Their only loss was to the number 2 team in the country. I said this before. So they're getting all these problems out now, and they get to address them, ahead of a pivotal matchup here against NC State. So we'll definitely continue to bring you all a lot of coverage heading into this huge road game for the Clemson Tigers. Once again, go ahead to clemsonsports.com. Grab yourself a membership, $10 for a whole year or $1 for 4 months. And also be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page as well. We would greatly appreciate it. Matt, any parting thoughts here?
No, yeah, I'm just what you said. Come subscribe, come hang out with us on the message board. Still got the great deal going on that you've mentioned, and just follow us along for plenty of coverage the rest of the week and the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Well, for Matt Connolly, I'm Joseph Hastings. You all have a great rest of your day. Stay tuned for more content.